Hi again, everybody. It's Mark from MT.TrainRestorations back, and I want to just continue on the previous video that we did on this little 1926 Lionel pre-war motor. As I said last time, I got a package in the mail. I got 3 shell bodies with a motor. The motor didn't run. The wheels, as you can maybe remember, were all shot. They're in pretty bad shape, as you can see, all wore out. Our goal was to get this back in running order, and we were going to pick a body or a shell for this motor and unmangle the frame and get it back on the tracks. So let me zoom in a little bit on where we're at right now, and we'll continue this. You can see here the motor. Excuse my wiggling around here a little bit. The motor last time, the wheels you could see are new. I have wheels for this, so I took these bad wheels that were on it. We're going to throw those away. And if you remember, the fiberboard on our contactors on our rollers was missing an end completely. And I have extras of these. I keep a few on stock. What I was concerned about is the Lionel plate. That's what tells the history better than anything. And you can probably see on this one does say the Lionel Corporation, which they started using in 1918. Prior to that, it was Lionel Manufacturing. And then they changed they got incorporated and they changed it. So after 1918, their plates would say Lionel Corporation. I like that, and this is a very good condition plate. So I took that plate off the old contactors and used a new board, new contactor set, and I re-riveted this plate on there, and we rewired, came up with one single contact for positive off of the rollers. And if you remember, the old motor, the wiring had a little sock on it to insulate, to keep things from rubbing together. I like that, so I used it over and brought up a new wire, and we branched off of that for a light, for a future light. And we took the positive wire to the bottom brush, and we took the other out of the other side of the filled coil and brought that wire to the upper brush, and that will complete the circuit. And this engine goes forward only. They didn't have the E units back then, or they didn't have the manual reverse switch at that time. This is a 1926-27. They used this style motor. I can tell by the brush plate. It has the legs on it that come down and attach, where the one after this, I believe they added spacers, so the plate was flat and they made up the leg space with a round spacer, and it fastened that way. So 1926-27, almost 100 years old here pretty soon. And as I said, I added the new wheels, and it runs like a bandit on the track. So so our next step was going to be, we were going to pick a body, and we had a couple choices. They weren't very favorable. First off, the frame, it was black, painted, rusty, a little mangled up. We straightened it out best we could, because these are a little flimsy. They didn't make them in a cast metal back in those days. They started doing that a little later. And I put a latch on it. It's a coupler. That's the type of coupler it had back in the day. So I put one on. I don't put one on the front. I put one only on the pull side. You can put one on the front. It's knocked out to do both. But you can see that the one body they gave me is too small for the frame. Doesn't fit. So that don't help. And the other one is pretty bad shape. I took it apart to try to see if I could straighten out some of the bad parts of the body. But again, it's pretty nasty. It's a lot of work to get this back together. I'll fool with it when I get time. I may take the time to blast it and try to pound out all the dents, but I chose the orange one. If you remember, there was an orange body. It wasn't the one that came with this model, but it does fit. These were added on, so they were just soldered, one on each end. I was going to just heat it up, knock them off, but I may or may not do that yet. But I don't think I mind it that much. But that's the body I chose. And if you noticed on these, all the little railings where they attach, these stanchions are the type that solder on. Back in those days, that's what Lionel did before they came out with the handrail that you may be more used to, that have little tabs on them. They fit through the hole. You bend the tabs over from the back. These are independently soldered on at the factory. Unless you lose one or break one, then you have to resolder it on. And they have them at each contact point where the railing hits. So they're brass. I like that. So what I'm going to do, again, we got the frame in good shape. We got the motor running well. I have a strap light, a brass strap light that we're going to use. It'll go right on here. And these came, this block engine shell came, these were the railings that were on it. All they are is a piece of steel, and they painted them gold. They're pretty crappy. So I'm going to make new ones for all locations. And I made a couple before I came on the video. I thought I'd tinker around a little bit beforehand. And so what I did, these are easy. 1.25 inch piece of stock. I have a lot of these pieces of stock rod. It's brass. I just cut a piece 1.25 inches for those. They were very simple to do. Measure my trusty measuring stick. Use my lineman pliers, cut a piece off, just like that. And what I like to do whenever I make railings, I don't like the little sharp end that it leaves. It'll usually catch up with you later somewhere. Somebody will get snagged on it. So I take my trusty file and I kind of rub these off. And I spin them a little bit, especially for these straight ones that are going to be out visible all the time. And you see both ends and you feel both ends. I like to round them off a little bit so you don't have any sharp edges or anything to snag you. And if you turn it a little bit in your fingers as you go back and forth on the file and kind of give it a little cone shape on the top, little rounded off kind of thing, then it makes a nice uniform look to it. This side not so bad because it was the end of the rod, so it was really no burrs on it. But I'm just going to round it up a little bit just to kind of take off any square edge kind of thing. And there we go. I mean, this is a simple ones to make. And these work on the notion that it's a shape like a letter Y. You slip it down into the metal shell, solder it, and the Y, once you get the railing in there a little bit, you take that Y and you squeeze it a little, just enough to put the tension on that new railing. And that's kind of, you don't want them falling out, but you don't want to squeeze this so hard that you kind of smash it over. So again, that only took a few seconds. This one here, I want to show you how I did that one. I just made one of these from the old one. I I measured it out. It takes about 3 inches, of rod to do that with. So make one up real quick for you. We're going to measure out about 3 inches of this stuff. It looks to be about right there. We'll cut off this piece here. Make them a hair heavy. I like to make them just a little bit heavier than it needs to be. That way, if it's a little bit long here or there, it's easier to cut it than to try to add back onto it. So you can start at either end, however you want to do it. Just line up the two ends, make them even, get some pretty firm, some good needle nose pliers, and you want to get that to the point where you match up the turn. You match up the turn from the good one, and you hold that spot and you just bend it down. Try to keep it at a 90. You can adjust it after. Just bend it down with a firm grip on that. So far so good. We have a good bend there, and we do the same with this. We're going to get it right where it needs to turn down. Get a good grip on it with your needle nose pliers. And just squeeze hard, and then just bend it down over. It's a little bit more than the 90, more than we need, but we can always bend it back a little bit. So let's see how we did. Yeah, it looks matches up pretty well, except this one's bent over a little more than it needs. So I'm going to open it back up a little. So with that said, we got two that match. One's a little longer. That's okay. We're going to try it. And like I said, if these are too tight to go get it into, you can open them up a little bit. Just get the a small screwdriver and gingerly put a little twist to it, just a little bit. That'll open that up, because you don't want to bend it out of the body and lose it, or you don't want to crack off one of those little brass tabs. You don't want half of the Y to break off. Then you're starting all over, putting in a new stanchion. So just kind of easily work it in there. See, let it slide in, and then get the hole lined up for the bottom one. There's holes on each end for those, and boom, there it is. This one here fits tight to the body. You can have a space if you want. You can leave it away from the shell some, or you can have it hit. Let's see how the other one fits, the one I just made. Now these are really opened up. These are opened up really wide, so it won't be too hard to get that all the way back to the back. Yeah, so boy, that's a pretty nice fit right there. I'm just going to take just a smidgen off of this back end with my lineman pliers, just a touch, and I kind of like it the way it fit. So I'm going to get my trusty file again, rub that on it, get the rough edges off. Even though it's going to be, this edge is going to go inside the car, you don't need to have it sharp where it'll snag anybody's fingers that go up in there, or grab a wire and poke a hole in the insulation or anything like that. So very simple. Like I said, just these go inside the body once you push them into place. So just take that sharpness off with a file. These are brass. It does it pretty quickly, pretty well. And again, just feed that back in there. Feed the bottom in, push it down, make sure it's in place. Now this back one is opened up pretty wide, so it won't stay in there on its own. I'm going to crimp that one down a little bit. Just got to get in there. Again, you just want to put enough tension on it to hold the bar in place. We don't want to lose a part of that. Just give a little squeeze, just to give it a, yeah, see, it's fits pretty good. So there's two of those. I save at least one of these from every body I get, to see which one for a matchup later. And so that kind of how that goes. You can buy this rod. I'm not sure what size it is. I don't recall, but it's like the size of the lead of a pencil. It's a very small diameter. I use it all the time. I make most of my railings. That's required for some of the cars that are out there. You can see there's a lot of railings that come up in engines these days. I use a lot of this stuff and make my own. Then, you know, it's easier than try to buy them somewhere, and it's a lot less expensive. But so that's how we make those. And like I said, to trim this one out the rest of the way, I do have the light for the front, and I do have a bell. It's an old original bell. Actually, it's off of this old shell that's too small. This is a 150 engine. Excuse me, 158. It doesn't work on this frame, so I stole the bell off of it. And since we're going kind of with a chrome, or excuse me, with a brass detail, and this is made out of nickel, what I'm going to do is I'll take the bell out of here and just open this up a little bit so we can pull the bell out. Let's see if we can get this out of here without too much damage. And then we could get this piece out. There. And we'll just pull this through. Take the bell out. We'll clean this up. I'll sand it. Maybe even, I might even put it in the sandblaster a little bit and clean it up. But we'll clean up the bell, clean up the frame that holds it in place, and I can either powder coat it in gold, which matches pretty well. I've used that color before, and I also have a paint. It's called gold, and it matches the brass pretty well itself. So we'll try to keep the same brass colors going all through the trims. So all I need now is to figure out what kind of color we're going to do on the body. Then I'll pull these back out of the way, and I will wrap these little brass pieces with some tape. We'll tape those off to paint it. And I also, if I powder coat it and it needs to go in the oven, I have some oven rated tape to use on these kind of things to tape stuff off. So it's pretty cool to have that ability. And this will just end up being black. I'll probably powder coat it black. That makes it more durable. So when it does get banged around a little bit, the powder coated system is more durable than paint. This body is in really good shape. It does have a little dinghy in the roof. Sometimes it doesn't really behoove you to pound these out, because that just makes I think a little bit more stand out. So this is wear and tear on a vehicle that is almost 100 years old. I think it's kind of cool to have that in there, and with a new color and some new decals on there, and with all the new brass, this will be a pretty nice piece. Like I said, I had it together the other day, kind of rough. I didn't have everything trimmed out, but I put the motor in the frame, and I put the body on the frame and sent it around the track. I just touched the power, and it wants to zip off the track. So it's a good, strong motor for its age. Lionel built them to last, and they sure do. So that was that project that we started the other day, and here we are. out of that delivery I got with 3 little shell bodies and a motor that didn't run, and all the wheels were bad, as you can see. We got ourselves a nice little runner now. It's back to work. It's all cleaned up. It's got fresh contactors, fresh wheels. It's ready to go into the frame and into the body, and we're all set. We'll have another new engine on our hands. So that's kind of it for now. I won't bore you with any more of this until we get back to another project. Thanks everybody, and remember again, if you have any comments, you want to get a hold of me, please do so. My email right here, MT.TrainRestorations@gmail.com. You could send me a note, send me some comments, and ask me if there's a project you're interested in and something you want to do on one of your trains, to fix something or to paint a different color, whatever you'd like to do to it. Let me know. I'll help you out any way I can. Until next time, bye everybody.